statisticians, we are looking at section 1A, the language statistics, the language of variation. So here we're starting with statistics. Statistics is the science and art of collecting, analyzing, and drawing conclusions from data. So don't forget to make a flashcard for that. Pause if you would like to do that. So this is just what we're going to do today. So we're going to start with individuals and variables. Oh, actually, sorry. Individuals and variables. So an individual is an object described in a set of data. Individuals can be people, animals, or things. So I think of the individual as like the who you are collecting data from. Variable is a characteristic that can take different values for different individuals. So I think of individual, like I said, as the who, and then the variables as the what. What are we measuring? What are we asking? So we have two types of variables. We have our categorical variable. So I think of these as like, you can put them in a category. So some examples of that. Birth month, favorite color, or even just color if it's an object. Like if cars are your individual and you're measuring the color of them. So categoricals, you can put it into a category. So the specific definition is takes values that are labels which place each individual into a particular group called a category. Quantitative variable takes number values. So I think of quantitative as a number. It's measurable. So an example of that would be height, weight, things of that nature. So now something that does confuse students with categorical versus quantitative is with categorical, you are counting how many individuals fall in that category sometimes. So with that, we do end up with a number still, but we're not measuring from the individual. So more specifically, here we have an example. Our individuals are 50 randomly selected U.S. high school students. And then these are different variables we can ask. We can ask what state they're in. We can ask their birth month, how old they are, if they're left or right-handed, their height, how many people occupy their home, do they have allergies, their preferred method of communication. So we can see, I'm going to do blue to be consistent, the categorical variables, state, birth month, right or left-handed, allergies, preferred method of communication. Those are all, you can lump them in a category. And even though we see birth month as a number, you're not measuring it, really. It's just oftentimes we describe birth months as numbers. And then the quantitative variables are, you can measure age, you can measure height, you can measure the number of people or count the number of people in a house. So here's information about 8 randomly selected U.S. residents from the 2020 census. Who are the individuals and what variables are measured, identify if they are categorical or quantitative. So I want you to pause answer these and then check your answers. Okay, so our individuals are the 8 randomly selected U.S. residents from the 2020 census. Our categorical variables are state and marital status. Quantitative are the number of family members, the age, and travel time to work. Now, the ID numbers are not a variable. Each one is unique to an individual. It's just how we're identifying those 8 individuals. So, now some ways we can summarize data with tables. A variable generally takes a values that vary, hence why they're called variables. We are interested in the pattern of variation. How is it varying? So we often will call that a distribution. So the distribution of a variable tells us what values the variable takes and how often it takes each value. Make a flashcard, don't forget to. I also forgot to say it, don't forget to make flashcards for our categorical quantitative variables. So there's a couple different ways that we can show data. We can summarize the variable's distribution with a frequency table or a relative frequency table. So a frequency table is the count slash how many times it occurs. Now, the relative frequency is a relative frequency table, shows the proportion. So proportions are decimals. You can write a proportion as fractions. We prefer decimals in stats. So decimals or percentage of individuals having each value. So your relative is showing decimals or percentages. So it's like that. How many times out of the total did this happen? So here we have data on a preferred method of communication for the same 50 students. And if we turn that into our tables, here's a visual of those 2 different types of tables. On the left, we have that frequency table. So what this is showing is 12 out of the 50 people said they prefer in-person. 6 prefer internet chat. 1 phone call. 6 social media. 25 text messaging. And then that should total up to your total count. Versus this relative frequency, that's calculating that percentage. There was 12 out of 50, so we would either show it as our decimal or our percentage. So if it is a decimal, it should total up to 1. If it's a percentage, it should total up to 100%. And that's your takeaways. So make sure you made your flashcards, working on your homework. And I suggest maybe even get ahead if you have extra time, and if you finish your homework, watch tomorrow's video. So have a good day. I miss you all.